Super interesting.
So, Admiral, let's extend Michael's point out to the military.
Sure.
And talk about what might come up. I mean, it's rare, as you know, generals try to stay out of politics. So now we have General Kelly on the record. We've heard from General Milley recently, even General Mattis in Bob Woodward's book talking about Donald Trump being a threat, Donald Trump being a fascist. But those guys will not be there if Donald Trump is reelected. So if you have some of the characters that Donald Trump will like to install in his government, what will they do in the military from that side of things if presented with a scenario where Donald Trump says, you need to go into the streets and put down that riot, or I need you to go arrest this person? All the things that Donald Trump is talking about openly and repeatedly. What is the duty, first of all, but what might those people put in the jobs because of their loyalty to Donald Trump? What might they do?
Right question to ask. I worry a lot about that. And by the way, to your point about others who have spoken out, General Stan McChrystal, Admiral Bill McRaven, there are other voices out here in that retired flag community. I think inside on active duty, as I said before, I continue to believe the U.S. military will hew to the Constitution of the United States. Every member of the military, all volunteers, have stood and taken that oath again and again and again. I watched the plebes, the freshmen arriving at the Naval Academy, do it this past summer. It's very moving, and you do it again and again. It is woven into the DNA of the military. And you just would have to reach so deep into the military. I think it would be very difficult to find a U.S. military general or admiral who would be willing to go back up the arrest of a former political opponent. It's just unthinkable to me. And yes, the counter to that would be, well, you know, Admiral, it was probably unthinkable in Hitler's Germany in 1939, or in Pinochet's Chile, or in many other countries. It has happened. I like to think our U.S. military would stand and deliver in those circumstances. I truly believe they would. But to the conversation we're having this morning, it bears deep watching, storm warnings out there.
And yet, unfortunately, Admiral, so many have grown numb.
Yeah.
And are now kowtowing to Donald Trump. The Wall Street Journal editorial page just 2 days ago mocked what they called, quote, the fascist meme. And they mocked it after Donald Trump had been promising for days to use the National Guard and the military, and kept calling Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff the enemies from within, as if he was going to do what America did during the War on Terror and arrest people. Not have Article 3 courts beyond Article 3 courts jurisdiction. And just let's go through this. The fascist meme, 2 days after saying that, a general who served as Donald Trump's longest serving chief of staff said, yes, he's a fascist. The Wall Street Journal opinion page might want to revisit this sneer while Donald Trump's saying these things, and his chief of staff and the general saying this. But I guess Donald Trump has promised over the past couple weeks to arrest Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, call them the enemies from within, to go after political opponents, to go after people in the media, to take CBS off the air because he didn't like his 60 Minutes interview. Yeah. He's talked before about trying Comcast for treason. He's talked about taking ABC off the air. He's talked about all of these things. And let me ask you, do you agree with General Kelly that saying that Donald Trump is behaving like a fascist, is talking like a fascist, should be believed to rule like a fascist? Is that a meme? Or is that something that everybody, including those people who write editorials at the Wall Street Journal, should be deeply concerned about for themselves? That this is more than an election to see who the next president is. This is an election to determine the future fate of what form of government we have and if Madisonian democracy survives.
John Kelly, honest, true, genuine, has spent more time around Donald Trump one-on-one than almost anybody else during that presidential period. I take great faith in what he says and his judgments, and I agree with them. I also, even though it's on background with a number of other sources, Mark Milley, another very senior officer, like John Kelly, a Bostonian, honest, true, genuine, looks like a bouncer in a bar in Boston, went to Princeton. He, on background, has said that Trump is a fascist to his core. That's the quote in the most recent book. So I repose a lot of trust in those officers, both of whom I know intimately, and I am very worried. Final thought. This is not only playing in this arena here in the United States. Katty Kay would tell you this is echoing enormously in Europe. I spent time yesterday with a group of very senior Koreans. This is echoing around the world, what is happening. The world's eyes are on us. And a final thought, perhaps the most chilling thing in a worrisome conversation this morning was the percentage of Americans you quoted who believe that these authoritarian figures are the answer. In some sense, the real concern is not just Donald Trump. It's who we are as a country. The world is watching. This is the most important election of my lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Kamala Harris meant when she was reaching out to the 800,000 Polish Americans who live in mostly northeastern Pennsylvania, 5% of Pennsylvania's vote. There's a volunteer effort underway to get Polish Americans to vote because they step up, because they have a shared history with Ukraine and with countries that have been stricken in a way that perhaps Americans cannot comprehend.
Well, and that your father and mother comprehended well because they had to flee political persecution in 1938.
That's right. Retired four-star.
It's not a meme.
It's not a meme.
It's not a meme when you have. Yeah, and Admiral, when you have, let's just break this down for Republicans that still, and for people who are just numbed by the talk, you have Donald Trump's longest serving chief of staff, General Kelly, saying Donald Trump's a fascist. And you have Donald Trump's last chairman of the Joint Chiefs saying that Donald Trump was, quote, a fascist to his core. That doesn't sound like a meme to you, does it, Admiral?
That's the least meme-ish thing I've heard in a long time. This is very real.
Retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis, thank you very much for